If you have your Bibles, I want to look at Hebrews, the 4th chapter. It's Hebrews, the 4th chapter, and beginning in verse 14. That's Hebrews 4, beginning in verse 14. You have to say amen. Amen. You still hear some flipping, so we'll wait. Hebrews 4, beginning in verse 14. It reads, "Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need."
Amen.
You may be seated.
Amen.
Verse of emphasis, verse 16. "Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need." Still on the same track, these few weeks we've been talking about completion. We've been talking about completely cured and completely covered.
Yeah.
We'll stay on that same track. I want to talk about complete confidence.
Amen.
Complete confidence. If you look at the word confidence, it comes from the root word to confide. The definition of confide means to entrust with. We have to realize that we can't confide in everybody.
Amen.
Not Jesus.
Some people can't hold what you tell them.
Yes.
Some people can't handle what you got going on. But there is somebody that you can tell everything to,
Oh, yes.
and they can handle every situation. Before we can deal with verse 16, because it says, "Let us therefore." I've been taught, and you always hear Pastor Williams say, if you see the word therefore, see what it's there for. Which means that word therefore always points back up that something has previously been said.
Yes.
And before we can deal with verse 16, we have to go back up. In verse 14, it talks about the high priest. If you understand the history of the high priest was he who could go in the Holy of Holies and to present the sacrifices in order to cover their sins. He could go in and he would take the blood of whatever sacrifice you wrought and pour it on the mercy seat of God. That's what a high priest would do. The thing about the high priest is that before he could go in for you, he had to first make sure that his own sins had been covered. You can see it in his outfit, because although he wore the robe of a priest, they designed his robe in such a way that to fasten it, they would not just to fasten it, but they would tie a rope around his waist. The rope had an extension on it to where it ran out of the Holy of Holies. He had bells at the bottom or at the hem of his robe. The reason for the rope was that if he didn't go in right, God would slay him, which means God would kill him. Because you can't go in front of a totally holy God with an unholy heart and mindset.
Yeah.
The bells were there to indicate to the people that were outside the veil of the Holy of Holies that if they didn't hear the bells moving on the bottom of his robe, they knew that God had slain him. And so then what they would have to do is they would have to pull him out. They couldn't go in and pick him up because God is too holy.
Yeah.
They would have to pull him out from behind the veil. That's how holy God is.
Yeah.
You had to be ordained in order to be a high priest. You couldn't just choose. Are y'all in here?
Yeah.
To be a high priest, there was a certain order in order to be the high priest. You had other priests, but only the high priest could go in beyond the veil. There's some flaw in that. There's a flaw in that system. The flaw is within the human high priest.
Yes, it is.
There's flaw there because, first of all, before he can take care or go in to take care of my sins, he's got to take care of his own sins.
Yeah.
That's why you have to be careful that you can't confide in people that are going through some of the same things that you are going through. Are y'all in here?
Yeah.
Because they're already messed up themselves.
Yeah.
They already have headaches themselves. They already have trouble themselves. They're already worrying themselves. They're already crying tears at night themselves. They're looking for somebody that they can call themselves.
Amen.
But right here, he moves on to let us know that we have a high priest that we can have confidence in. It says it right here in verse 14, seeing then that we have a great.
Yeah. Great.
You got to watch the Bible because it didn't just say high priest.
Great.
It says great
Yeah.
high priest. The reason for that description there, Mickey, is because it sets Jesus apart from every other
Amen.
high priest.
Amen.
It sets him apart because it says that he is the great high priest.
Yeah.
When you look at that word, what it really means, it goes beyond great. It says that he is the greatest
Yeah. Yes, he
high
is.
priest.
Yes, he is.
He's the greatest high priest.
Yes, he is.
Well, I had to ask a question. What makes him the greatest high priest? Is answered in the text. First of all, he's the greatest high high priest, first of all, you got to deal with his rank. He's the greatest.
Yeah.
He outranks every other high priest that it has been.
Yeah.
That means that he's over every other high priest. Turn me down just a little bit, Josh. He's greater than every other, right there, high priest. Jeanette, what else makes him the greatest is because of his residence.
Yeah.
It's right there in verse 14. It says that is passed into the heavens.
Yeah.
Which means this. All the other high priests, mama, were down here on earth trying to petition God on our behalf.
Yeah.
But Jesus, the greatest high priest, is sitting right next to the Father.
Yeah.
Are y'all in here?
Glory.
Because he resides in heaven. He sits on the right hand of the Father. So when we petition him, he is right next to the Father saying, Lord, do you hear him? Father, do you hear him?
Yeah.
And he makes groans and utterance for us. And that's why when you pray messed up prayers, he'll clear your prayer up. The other high priest couldn't do that.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Because they didn't have all wisdom, because they had flaw, because they had sin in their own life. He's the greatest, but first of all, because of where he resides. He says that it's passed into the heavens. That's his residence. He's the greatest high priest, watch this, because it says Jesus, the Son
Yeah.
of God.
Yes.
Now we are sons and daughters of God, but you watch this, when it says son for Jesus, it's got a capital S
Yeah.
O-N. What it means is that he is the only begotten
Yes.
of God. And see, when you understand Jesus, when you know that he is the only begotten, that means that he comes from God, and he is God, and will always be God.
Amen.
Are y'all in here?
Amen.
In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Talking about Jesus. So Jesus is God himself.
Amen.
He says he's the greatest high priest because not only is his residence in heaven, but he is God.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Talks about his residence with God, his relation with God. He says, so since we understand that, let us hold fast to our profession. But watch this in verse 15. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmity, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin.
Yes.
The other thing that makes him the greatest high priest is because, Abby, he's been tested.
Yeah.
And see, a lot of people say they have faith. A lot of people can tell you if I was in that situation, what I would do, but they hadn't been there.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes you have to watch people, because if your faith has never been tried, that's why you ought not always be looking for everything to go right in your life. Sometimes you need trouble to happen in your life, because trouble indicates and shows you where you really are.
Amen. So true. Amen.
Get with somebody and have some trouble between you and them, and it'll tell you what your relationship really is based upon.
Oh, yes.
Preach, Josh. I'm trying to. See, because I don't want to have no relationship with nobody. We ain't never had no disagreement. We ain't never, y'all ain't in here. Because, see, that's when the relationship is truly tested, when there is some adversity there. You ought not want no marriage that there ain't never been no trouble there.
Yeah.
Are y'all in here?
Amen.
Because it needs to be tested. Now watch this. Jeanette, it says not only has he been tested, but he passed the test.
Amen. Yes, he did.
Now many of us been tested, but we might not have passed the test.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's why we have to wonder, why do I keep going through this? Because he's trying to get you to pass the test. But Jesus was tested at every point. Everything you've been through, every temptation that has come your way, he has been tested in every area, but he passed the test. How do I know he passed the test? Because it says, yet he was tested, but without sin.
Amen. That's true.
Means that he didn't miss the mark. He passed the test. I told you about these other high priests, that they would go in, and that means they couldn't pass the test. But Jesus passed the test.
Yeah.
You ought to be glad that you have somebody. See, because what you really have in Jesus, because first of all, the other high priest, mama, first of all, had to worry about themselves.
Yeah. They did.
Jesus don't have to worry about himself.
Yeah.
He can totally concentrate on your circumstance. He can totally concentrate on your sin problem, because guess what? He don't have no sin in his life, so he don't have to worry. I'm going to go ahead and preach. He don't have to worry about cleaning himself up first. He's already clean. He came here clean. He's always been clean. He's already holy. He don't have to get holy. He's already holy. He is holy.
Yes, he is.
He says, yet without sin. That's what makes him the greatest.
Yes.
But watch this. He's the greatest. He's a great God. He's the great high priest. But he's also sensitive. He's sensitive because yet and still, although he is without sin, he has compassion on us that do deal with sin.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
He has compassion on us that entertain sin. He has compassion on us that think sin. He has compassion on us that talk sin. He has compassion on us that sing. Y'all ain't in here. He says he has compassion for our condition. Although he passed the test,
Yes.
he's not looking down on us because we have flunked
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
Glory.
the test. And I don't care how you walk around, how many songs you sing, or whatever. All of us have flunked some tests, and some of us still flunking some in our life.
Amen.
Yeah.
Don't get in your attitude and mind as if you have arrived,
Yeah.
Amen.
because you have not.
Yeah.
Amen.
I'm sorry to bust your bubble, but you have not, because if you have arrived, you don't need Jesus no more.
Amen.
He passed the test. But he has compassion for our condition. Well, what is our condition? First of all, the first thing about our condition is that we are feeble. Which means this, Jordan, we have a lack of strength.
Yes.
You can be strong in certain areas, but let enough weight get on you.
Yeah.
All of us have weaknesses.
Yes.
He says, and although I understand that you are weak, yet and still I have compassion
Yeah.
on you. Not only are we feeble, but we're frail. Which means not only do I have a lack of strength, but since I'm frail, that means that I can be easily damaged or broken.
Amen.
Y'all missed it.
Amen.
I'm feeble, I lack strength. So when pressure get on me, when the devil is riding me, and when temptation comes your way, if too much come, are y'all in here?
Yeah.
You might just get damaged, or you might just break.
Yeah.
But he understands it. And since Abby, he understands it, he already has covered Y'all ain't in here. He has already covered you because he is the high priest. How is he covering me? Because I already told you that he resides in heaven, which means he's over me. And since he's God and he has a relationship with God, that means he is everywhere all the time. Not only is he over me, Abby, he's all around me.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he
He
is.
says he has compassion. See, some people won't have sympathy when you are feeble and frail.
Yeah.
They won't sympathize with you, which means they won't have no pity. They really don't care.
Yes.
Now watch this, ladies. Now some people do have sympathy, but they don't have what we call empathy.
Yeah.
See, some folk feel sorry for you,
Yeah.
but empathy is not only feeling sorry for you, empathy is me putting on your shoes.
Amen.
Y'all missed it. See, because some folk can't understand where you coming from. Some folk don't understand how you feeling because they ain't never been in your shoes. But since Jesus is the great high priest and he's been tempted in every era, he's already had on your shoes before you put your own shoes on.
Amen. Amen.
So he understands not only I can have pity on you, but I understand where you are and what you're going through. But since I passed the test, I can help you.
Amen.
See, I don't need nobody tutoring me that ain't passed no test.
Amen.
Now, if you can't get the algebra, how you gonna teach the algebra to me? Y'all in here? You can't teach what you don't know.
Yeah.
But since Jesus knows it all, he teaches us.
Yes.
He says, listen, I understand y'all are feeble and frail. And although I passed the test, and you are here and there are flunking some of these tests, I'm still going to have compassion, some sympathy on you, and some empathy.
Yeah.
Now that I've covered all this, can I deal with verse 16 and we out of here? He says, now that you understand the high priest, this great high priest that you have, now that I've cleared all that up and told you what you have in this high priest, he says, maybe now your attitude can change. Maybe now your outlook can change. I'm trying to wake somebody up in here. Listen, he said, now that you understand who I am and what I can do, guess what? Now you can come bold. Now you can have complete confidence, not in your ability, because I told you, you too weak, you too frail. So it ain't in my ability, and what I can do is in the ability of what Jesus has already done and what he can do in my own life.
Amen. Amen.
He said, he said, now that you understand, he said, first of all, come close.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Sometimes, Mickey, we stand too far off from God.
Yeah. Help us.
And the reason why, Jordan, is because we got this sin problem.
Yeah.
And so what the devil does when we mess up, he keeps putting it in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen.
And when he keeps putting it in front of us, then we deal with the guilt over and over and over again.
Yes.
Which I wouldn't have. Listen here, baby, you've already done it. You can't take it back. It's already been done. But watch this. The confidence is not in what you have done and not what you are doing. I already told you that. You're too feeble. You're too frail. The power and the ability for you to go to God is not in your ability, but in the ability of Jesus Christ. So then, guess what? Now I can throw off guilt because it ain't predicated upon my strength anyhow. I'm going in the strength of the Lord in the name of Jesus. Now I can go to God no matter what I've done, no matter what I wish I could preach in here, no matter what I've thought, because I understand I got a high priest that got a relationship with God that will never diminish.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord.
He says, come close. You ain't got to stand far off from God because you messed up last night.
Yeah. My.
You can still come on close. He's still telling you to come on. Come on. See, that's when you find good parents. And see, that has to come from God, that even when you mess up, they still have y'all ain't in here. I can't tell you how much I messed up. And my mama and my dad, they still love me. God's love is greater than that.
Amen. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Or whoop your hand, hug you all at the same time.
Yeah. Yes, he will.
He says, come close. Let us therefore come. Watch this. He says, don't just come. He says, but come boldly. Boldly means come. My approach should be with confidence.
Yes.
I told you at the beginning of this sermon, the root word of confidence is to confide. That means, Jonathan, that when I come close, ain't no need of me hiding nothing.
Yeah.
I already told you where his residence is. He sits high. He's in heaven.
Yeah.
He sees everything.
Oh, yeah.
He's everywhere. How can you hide from him? There's no reason for me to come to God with my hands behind my back as if I'm hiding some from him. He said, I need you to approach with all confidence that whatever you got going on, baby, I can handle it. Whether it's right or wrong, whether you're broken or not, I can fix it, I can handle it, I can take care of it. So come boldly. You might well throw your hands up and show God your hands and surrender to him. Look here, Lord, I'm messed up. I ain't thinking right. I ain't doing right. But Lord, thank God that I can come boldly.
Yes. Amen.
He says, come close, come with some confidence. He said, but then watch this. Let's therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace. It might be more there, y'all, but in my limited mind, I see two things there when I come, what I get. The first thing that I get when I come boldly, when I come close to him, I come in confidence, I come under his comfort.
Amen. Hallelujah. Yes.
Well, Josh, when you are truly a child of God, sin makes you uncomfortable.
Amen.
It doesn't always mean that you won't succumb to it. But you always have in your mind and heart, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Yeah.
And when you come under that conclusion that, listen here, sin has made me uncomfortable. I'm tired of being sick.
Yeah.
Amen.
If you ever been sick just like I'm feeling today, talking feels uncomfortable today. Trying to sing feels uncomfortable today because you're not at your best.
Yeah.
And that's what sin does to you. It keeps you from doing your best. But thank God that although sin makes me uncomfortable, you can bring your uncomfortable self to the Lord and he will give you comfort.
Yeah.
Well, how does he give me comfort? First of all, he takes the uncomfortableness off of me.
Yeah.
He takes sin off of me and he covers me.
Yes.
He says, I get some comfort. Watch this. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy. When it deals with grace and that mercy, first of all, we know that grace is unmerited favor.
Yes, it is.
Which means this, that you cannot earn it.
Yeah.
You don't deserve it.
Yeah.
But it gives you favor anyhow.
Yes.
And I don't care how good you have done, how good you can talk, all of us need the grace and mercy
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
of God.
Yes, we do.
Because if we get really what we deserve, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
But since he gives me grace, I obtain grace and mercy from him
Yes.
Thank you.
to help in my time of need. And not only when it says that grace is an unmerited favor, and that mercy is his compassion. Watch this. That word also means divine influence. Josh, which means this, that when I come close to him,
Yes.
I come to him in confidence. He comforts me. He takes the uncomfortableness off of me and comforts me. But watch this, Jeanette. Then I come under his control.
Amen. Yes. Glory.
See, that's why altar prayer, not just here is important, but at your own home.
Yes, it is.
You got to pray to God because that's the only way to come under his divine influence. And if you want your children not to be influenced by the world, you got to go to the altar sometimes for them because they need to be under some divine influence. I know they ain't listening to you. I know they're doing what they want to do. But if you keep them lifted up in prayer, God will touch their hearts and he will bring them under divine. If I can tell you the prayers my mama and grandma have prayed for me when I was acting a fool, when I didn't care nothing about life, I wanted to leave here. But because somebody prayed for me, I came under divine influence.
Glory. Hallelujah. Thank you, Father.
Well, how you feel about it, but I need somebody else to take the wheel.
Yes.
Because when I got my hands on the wheel, I'll go anywhere. Y'all don't want to talk to me. I can only give my own testimony. When I take control of the wheel, I get all across the line.
Yeah.
I be headed for head-on collisions. But because I know
Jesus.
that when I get to swerving, nigga, what it does for me is make me go down on my knees.
Yeah. Jesus.
I say, Lord, take the wheel.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I need some divine
Jesus.
influence.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I want to be under the influence of the Holy Ghost.
Yes.
Y'all know another word for the Holy Ghost is comforter.
Yes, it is.
He'll comfort you.
Yes, he will.
He says, you can come to me with complete confidence
All right.
because who I am,
Yes.
where I am,
Yeah.
and what I can do. That's why you don't have to worry about it. Because we got the greatest high priest.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other folks dealing with Buddha.
My Jesus.
Buddha's dead. Other people dealing with Muhammad. Muhammad is dead. Other folks dealing with other gods that are dead. And my God died.
Hey.
Just he died on Friday. He was buried. He was dead on Saturday. But the reason why I have the greatest high priest
Oh, yeah.
is because Jeanette, he did not stay dead.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
That he got up early Sunday morning.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Not as a weakling, not as a punk, but with all power
Yes.
in heaven and in earth
Yes, he did.
in his hands. We've got the greatest high priest. You ought not be quiet about it. You ought not try to hide from, but go boldly.
Yeah.
Whatever you got going on, whatever in your mind, whatever in your heart, no matter what the circumstances, no matter how many enemies have come up against you, no matter how many people you see aiming at you, go go boldly
Yes.
and go with some confidence.
Yes.
All right.
He has already given us complete confidence.
Yes, he has.
Not in yourself, not in your pastor, but in your great high priest,
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
who is the Son
Oh, yes.
of the living God. The doors of the
Yeah.
church are open.
Amen.
If you hadn't tried this high priest,